Greetings, people of the internet. I am back to give you an update on the current state of Insectoid Infestation. This week, I focused on creating the player movement script, as well as allowing the player to be able to shoot projectiles. My main focus is to quickly create the minimum viable product for the project in order for me to test the core of the game before adding too many components that may leave me overwhelmed. So stay tuned for the news. I wanted to sustain an organized workflow for the creation of Insectoid Infestation, so I decided to create a Trello board to record different tasks that I want to complete for the initial prototype of the game. As you can see, I have pinpointed specific milestones alongside many of the tasks that need to be assessed for those milestones. I started with milestone 1.0, which includes the ability to move the player's ship, as this would be the most essential gameplay element. First, I needed to sample a player ship in order for us to visually see the movement in action. Sprite is my go-to software to manipulate pixel art, so I cleaned up the sprite sheet and copied over the initial sprites that I would need for movement. Changing up the palette to a duller color scheme ended up looking really unique, and I cannot wait to add some neon lighting to truly make each sprite stand out. I ended up adding an extra frame to the left and right turn sprites in order to fluidly keep the ongoing feel of the ship's thrusters. Moving on to Unity, I decided to set up the project as WebGL just so I will be able to post the first iteration of the game on itch.io. I also tweaked the resolution of the project to match that of a traditional space shoot-'em-up. Importing the newly created sprite sheet was the easiest endeavor of this entire process. Remember to change the pixels per unit to whatever suits the sprite sheet, and change the filter mode to point no filter, and then apply no compression for crisp looking pixel art. From there, I sliced up the sprite sheet and I proceeded to create the three base animations: idle, move left, and move right. With that done, we are able to knock two tasks off the Trello board. Next up, I followed a tutorial by Pixel Element Games for the base movement script. The tutorial series is quite an older one, but still managed to work seamlessly. However, I may have to edit some of the code in the future. In a nutshell, the code shown intakes input from the player using the WASD or arrow keys and applies speed in whatever direction has been pressed. My main focus at this point was to allow the player to move the ship, and it worked! This allowed me to knock yet another task off my Trello board. Now I can begin to work on changing the player's animation when moving left or right, and create the screen boundaries so the player can no longer leave the screen. I set up an animator controller for the ship to control the animations. Initially, I had thought to use the AnyState node to seamlessly transition between the animations. However, this did not work as planned and later had to be tweaked. But I continued on and coded an animation check function within the movement script to fully control the animations. I forgot a few lines of code to fully make this work, and as a result, you can see that the thrusters do not variate when moving left and right. I fixed all of those issues by adding in some needed code and switching up the layout of the animation nodes. I was so happy to finally resolve that ugly problem. Finally, I added the necessary code in the movement script to calculate the screen bounds and to restrict the player from leaving those bounds. Please note, whenever following a tutorial, make sure that you are using the correct operators when calculating to ensure that you do not make the same silly mistakes that I did. And with that, I have successfully completed my first milestone, and the player is now able to move freely throughout the screen bounds. Now, to finish out the episode, I wanted to destroy milestone 1.1 to enable the ability to shoot projectiles. I started by laying out the sprite sheet for all the currently available attack types. However, in this video, I only wanted to finish the primary bullet being the basic attack. I decided to amp up the sprite sheet by converting the color scheme to the updated palette that I am using for this project. The first portion of the sprite sheet was fully recolored, and I will touch on the remaining at a later date. Again, I imported the sprite sheet to Unity, and it was so easy. I updated the Trello board to log my success so far, and then ventured into creating the shooting script. Because, you know, who doesn't like to shoot things? Although I should have created the projectile as a scriptable object, I concluded that I just wanted to see some shooting at this point, and I will deal with that problem later. For now, the bullet will be able to move given its amount of speed, and it will automatically be destroyed after leaving the top of the screen. I then proceeded to create the initial bullet prefab to be used once the player presses the fire button. I added the necessary code in order for the player to shoot within the movement script. I feel ashamed to include that I forgot to add the shoot function to the update function and failed miserably trying to get the ship to finally shoot a projectile. Anyway, the code allows a prefab to be instantiated given a point on the ship. For now, I set it up to where the bullet comes from the front of the ship, but as attack types are implemented, I will need to be able to switch up where the initial fire point is on the ship. However, I now have completed both milestone 1.0 and 1.1, and to be honest, I have been playing around with the movement and the shooting quite a bit. Needless to say, I am very proud of the work put in so far, and I hope you all feel the same. If you do enjoy the content, feel free to smack that subscribe button alongside the notification bell to stay updated with the progress of my game, Insectoid Infestation. Also, Discord is the platform that I am on the most, so feel free to drop on by my Discord server, Stumpy's Spaceship, for updates on when I go live on Twitch and/or post on YouTube. I will also be accepting suggestions for my game or my content on YouTube within my server as well. My social media will be linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.